Hey young and restless fans. Victor is making promises all over Genoa City, Nikki is getting health news, and Kyle and Victoria are suddenly trusting each other, which honestly sounds like the beginning of a disaster, not a love story. And when this many secrets start trading hands in 1 week, you know somebody is going to end up shocked, cornered, or completely unglued. So the real question is, who's about to lose control first? It's Radhika from Radhika Storyline, and we're going to talk about the latest Young and Restless spoilers for the week of July 20th through July 24th. But first, please hit subscribe if you're not already following us. So this week on Young and Restless, we are diving straight into classic chaos, because apparently Victor and Nikki cannot enjoy one peaceful moment before Jack somehow gets dragged into the middle of their marriage again. And honestly, that is so on brand for this canvas. Monday kicks off with Jack causing another rift between Victor and Nikki, and I have to say, the speed on that is almost impressive. Didn't these two just smooth things over? Didn't they just have their whole "we're united, nobody can break us" energy? And now here comes another fracture line which tells me whatever Jack says or does, or whatever Victor thinks Jack says or does, is going to hit a nerve that was never actually healed in the first place. And that matters because when Victor gets defensive about Nikki, he doesn't just get protective, he gets diabolical. He starts making moves. He starts testing loyalty. He starts deciding who belongs in the family circle and who needs to be crushed for sport. So even though the spoiler sounds simple, another rift, that is never just a marital spat where two people cool off and talk it out over coffee. This is Victor Newman. A rift with him can turn into a whole reign of terror by Thursday. Now, right alongside that, Adam makes a promise to Sally because he is determined to protect his ex from his Machiavellian father. And honestly, I kind of love that Adam is still clocking Victor for exactly who he is. There is something very Adam about that, seeing the threat early, feeling it in his bones, and then immediately trying to get ahead of the blast radius. The interesting part, though, is that Sally is his ex. So this is not clean, detached concern. This is emotional. This is messy. This is one of those situations where he can tell himself he's just being decent, but come on, nobody is making solemn promises in Genoa City unless there are feelings somewhere under the hood. And then there's Nick, who apparently decides now is the time to hold Matt Clark accountable for his actions, which, I'm sorry, feels extremely late. Like, if Nick was going to do that, months ago would have been ideal. You would think the man would not wait until the situation got this tangled to step in. But that delay itself tells you something. Either Nick has been sitting on guilt, or he knows more than he's been saying, or this Matt Clark issue is about to come roaring back in a bigger way than people expected. And if Sharon ends up in the emotional crossfire, which looks very likely, then of course this thing is not some loose end. It's a live wire. So then Tuesday gives us Diane helping Jack on his road to recovery, and that sounds nice on paper, but in soap language it usually means two things at once. First, Jack really is vulnerable right now. And second, Diane gets positioned as the person closest to him during that vulnerability, which always changes the power balance in a family. Anytime somebody is recovering and somebody else is helping steer the emotional process, you are not just watching caretaking. You are watching influence. I liked that for Diane, honestly, because she is always fighting for legitimacy in that family, always having to prove she belongs, and moments like this let her look useful, devoted, and central. And then we get Kyle and Victoria trading secrets, which is where I started side-eyeing the screen immediately. Because, excuse me? Kyle and Victoria? That is not a pairing that should feel this loaded, and yet here we are, one step closer to what even the spoilers are calling a controversial new coupling. So now they're trusting each other, confiding in each other, and probably telling themselves it's strategic, because everybody in this town loves to pretend emotional intimacy is just business. But come on. Trading secrets is not neutral behavior. Trading secrets is chemistry with plausible deniability. And honestly, that would be a huge shocker, not because soap couples can't be messy, obviously they can, but because of what it would say about both of them. Victoria does not open up unless she sees use, value, or connection. Kyle does not get in this deep unless he thinks someone really sees him or can help him get what he wants. So, if they're meeting in that space, this is not random. This is a setup, and not a subtle one. Now Tuesday also gives us Tracy taking a big risk to help her family, where the nefarious Martin Laurent is concerned. And first of all, anytime Tracy is taking a big risk, I pay attention because Tracy is not reckless. She's thoughtful. She's measured. She's usually the one trying to bring sense into the room while everybody else is running around like the building is on fire. So if she is taking a risk, then the Martin Laurent situation is serious, ugly, and probably more dangerous than people have been admitting out loud. And I hate to say it, but whenever the calmest person in the family starts getting bold, that's when you know the panic is real. Then Wednesday rolls around and Victor makes a promise to Nikki, just as she receives news about her health. And this is where the entire week starts to feel heavier. Because now we're not just talking about power struggles and old grudges. We're talking about Nikki getting health news at the exact moment Victor is making promises. That timing is not accidental. This show loves to line up emotional blows and protective vows, and when it does that, it's usually because it wants us to ask whether the promise can actually be kept. And honestly, health news can mean a lot of things in soap terms. It can be truly dire. It can be scary, but manageable. It can be something that triggers old fears more than immediate danger. But no matter what it is, for Victor, Nikki's vulnerability changes the board. He may get softer with her, or at least softer in private, but in public, he gets worse. He gets more controlling. He starts deciding what everyone else should do for Nikki's good, which is how he justifies nearly every overreach in his life. Also on Wednesday, Phyllis keeps tabs on Matt Clark, and honestly, that is exactly the kind of sentence that should worry everybody. Because Phyllis does not keep tabs in a normal way. She doesn't casually observe. She spirals, she investigates, she inserts herself, she pokes a dangerous situation until it pokes back. I mean, the spoiler itself basically jokes that the GCPD, Victor's security detail, and everybody else should be monitoring Matt at all times, and that says a lot. This man is clearly not somebody you want slipping through the cracks. So now Phyllis is watching him, Nick is trying to hold him accountable, and Sharon is about to get a confession that makes her more worried than ever. That's not random overlap. That's a storm pattern. Now Thursday is where the emotional consequences start surfacing. Nick makes a confession to Sharon that leaves her more worried than ever, and that is fascinating to me because Sharon is not easy to rattle unless something feels deeply wrong on an instinct level. She has seen too much, survived too much, and heard too many confessions in this town to be startled by ordinary bad news. So if Nick says something and Sharon comes away more worried than ever, then either Nick has been underestimating the threat, hiding something significant, or walking himself into a situation he cannot control. And then Audra and Sally explore their options, however limited they may be. Which, honestly, is one of those deceptively juicy spoilers, because Audra and Sally are two women who hate being cornered. They are inventive, they are ambitious, and they do not enjoy sitting still while men with giant egos rearrange their lives. So if their options are limited, that means the walls are closing in from somewhere. Victor. Business fallout. Personal blowback. Maybe all of the above. And I am very interested in what happens when Sally is dealing with Adam's promise while also strategizing with Audra, because those are two very different energies pulling at her. And then Chelsea and Adam make a power move to impress Victor, which is such a loaded little spoiler. Because first of all, Adam is over here promising Sally protection from Victor, but also making moves with Chelsea to impress Victor. So now we've got conflicting loyalties, divided motives, and the possibility that Adam is playing more than one game at once. Which, to be fair, is also on brand for Adam. He can be sincere and strategic in the same breath. He can care about Sally and still align with Chelsea on a move that benefits him. That doesn't automatically make him fake. It just makes him Adam. Now by Friday, Billy and Sally discover that Jill is keeping a secret, and if there's one thing Jill does better than almost anybody, it is keep a secret until the exact moment it detonates. So, I am instantly interested. Why are Billy and Sally the ones finding this out? Why now? And how much damage does this secret do once it's out? Because Billy plus Sally discovering hidden information sounds like a chain reaction waiting to happen. Billy is impulsive. Sally is sharp. Jill is powerful. That triangle can go berserk fast. And Friday also teases that Kane may be reformed, but he still strikes a hard bargain. Which is the most soap way possible to say, yes, maybe he's changed, but don't get cute and assume he's harmless. I actually like spoilers like that because they remind you that redemption on these shows is never clean. Somebody can be better and still ruthless. Somebody can have evolved and still know exactly where to stick the knife in a negotiation. And honestly, that's more interesting than a total saint makeover anyway. And then, maybe the strangest little gem of the week, Devon finds common ground with, of all people, Ashley. I kind of love that because it is so oddly specific, and those are often the interactions that end up mattering the most. When two characters who are not obvious allies suddenly connect, it can shift family dynamics in really subtle ways. It can create new trust. It can open old wounds. Or it can become the start of a totally unexpected alliance that everybody else ignores until it is way too late. So that's the recap, and honestly, this week feels like one of those weeks where the spoilers are acting casual while quietly setting fire to half the canvas. You've got Victor making vows, Nikki getting health news, Adam splitting his focus between Sally and Chelsea, Nick and Sharon getting dragged deeper into the Matt Clark mess, Kyle and Victoria walking toward controversy, and Jill hiding something that will absolutely not stay buried. That is not light summer drama. That is the kind of setup where somebody ends the week emotionally crushed, and somebody else ends it thinking they've won when they absolutely have not. So let's talk theories because that is where this gets really good. First up, I suspect Victor's promise to Nikki is going to become the justification for some over-the-top move that affects half the people around them. And honestly, that's the Victor pattern every single time. If Nikki is vulnerable, especially with health news involved, he is not going to sit back and trust the process. He's going to interfere. He's going to tighten the circle. He's going to decide who is safe for her, who is harmful to her, and who needs to be shoved out of the picture. And that is exactly why Jack being at the center of another rift matters so much. My guess is Victor starts seeing Jack less as an old rival and more as an active threat to Nikki's peace, whether that's fair or not. And if that happens, then the vow to Nikki is not romantic in the soft sense. It's protective in the dangerous sense. It's Victor saying, in effect, I will handle this, which is comforting until you remember how Victor handles things. He doesn't just solve problems. He dominates them. He humiliates people. He burns bridges and then acts surprised there's smoke everywhere. So I could absolutely see this promise leading to a new crackdown, a new feud, or some kind of controlling decision made in Nikki's name. Next, I'm betting Nikki's health news is going to ripple through the family in a way that exposes existing fault lines rather than bringing everybody together. Soap families always talk about rallying, and then 5 minutes later someone is keeping information, making unilateral decisions, or blaming the wrong person. So, while on the surface this could be a moment that unites Victor and Nikki, I actually think it may reveal how fragile that peace really is. If Nikki wants autonomy and Victor wants control, then even love becomes a battleground. And you know what else? Health scares have a way of making every promise around them feel bigger than it should. Suddenly Adam's promise to Sally matters more. Nick's confession to Sharon matters more. Jack's role matters more. Everybody starts making choices as if time is short or danger is immediate, and that's when people overplay their hand. So I wonder if Nikki's news becomes the emotional center that pulls all the surrounding plots tighter. Another possibility, and honestly this is one of the juiciest, is that Adam's promise to Sally ends up colliding hard with his power move with Chelsea. Because on paper, those are two separate things. In practice, not so much. If Adam is trying to protect Sally from Victor while also teaming up with Chelsea to impress Victor, there is a built-in contradiction there that somebody is going to notice. Maybe Sally notices. Maybe Chelsea does. Maybe Victor does, which would be worst case because Victor loves detecting divided loyalty and exploiting it. I could see Adam telling himself he can manage both sides. Protect Sally privately, perform for Victor publicly, and keep Chelsea as a strategic ally. But that is exactly the kind of balancing act that blows up in his face. And if Sally is already boxed in, already trying to explore limited options with Audra, she may not be in the mood to trust Adam's intentions, even if they're sincere. Honestly, this could be the week where Adam means well and still makes everything worse, which is such a soap specialty. And on that note, I'm also wondering if Chelsea's role here is less romantic and more tactical, at least for now. The spoiler says she and Adam make a power move to impress Victor, and that sounds very calculated. It sounds like two people presenting a united front because they know Victor responds to strength and usefulness. So maybe Chelsea sees an opening. Maybe Adam sees an advantage. Maybe both are true. But either way, if their partnership gets results, then Sally ends up even more isolated, which raises the stakes on whatever she and Audra decide to do next. Now, let's talk Nick, Sharon, and Matt Clark, because this feels like the sleeper disaster of the week. First, Nick deciding to hold Matt accountable now tells me there has been hesitation, delay, or denial up to this point. And when a person delays acting against danger, the confession that follows is usually ugly. So I suspect Nick tells Sharon either that he underestimated Matt, mishandled something connected to him, or knows more than he wanted to admit. Sharon being more worried than ever is the key phrase for me. Not annoyed, not upset, worried. That means threat, instability, unpredictability. And because Phyllis is also keeping tabs on Matt, I am betting this plot is going to turn into a messy overlap between people who all think they can manage the situation their own way. Nick may want to confront it head-on. Sharon may want caution. Phyllis may go rogue, because of course she might. And when too many people are circling the same dangerous loose end, somebody usually gets burned. Honestly, this has all the ingredients of a panic-driven side plot that suddenly becomes central. Here's another one. Kyle and Victoria trading secrets may not just be about attraction. It may also be about leverage. I mean, sure, the controversial coupling angle is sitting right there, and yes, the chemistry possibility is obvious. But in this town, intimacy and strategy are constantly braided together. So I wonder if what begins as mutual trust becomes mutual leverage very quickly. Kyle might feel seen by Victoria in a way that makes him reckless. Victoria might appreciate Kyle's openness while also recognizing how useful it is. And once secrets are exchanged, neither one of them is really free anymore. That's why I'm betting this relationship, whatever form it takes, becomes controversial for more than one reason. Not just because people will talk, which they will endlessly, but because the information they swap could affect family loyalties, business positions, or future betrayals. And honestly, if somebody is throwing caution to the wind, as the setup suggests, then one of them is probably ignoring a giant red flag right in front of their face. And I have to say, I could see Kyle being the one who gets more emotionally compromised. Victoria is usually better at compartmentalizing. Kyle, on the other hand, can convince himself he's in control right up until he's absolutely not. So if this goes further, I wouldn't be surprised if Victoria remains the cooler player while Kyle gets pulled in deeper than he intended. That would be a disaster, but it would also be compelling.